The first aspect of language that requires our particular attention relates to clarity. Because communication is not a one way channel, because the audience is involved in the interpretation of what a speaker is saying, there are many different interpretations, even for very basic words. So, a speaker needs to take extra care being as specific as possible. And that is really the starting point for creating language that is clear, being specific. If you think about a word like cat, cat is a word that most of us are familiar with, and it seems like it's pretty basic. If we say the word cat, there's not a lot of miscommunication that can happen there. But if you think about it more deeply, there really is a lot of interpretation that can go into that word. We could be talking about a 3-year-old tabby named Tiger, or we could be talking about a Siberian tiger. Those two different images are very different. So it does require us as speakers to take that special care in being specific with the type of language that we're using. If we mean a 3-year-old tabby named Tiger, and it's important for our audience to understand that's what we mean, and not a Siberian tiger, then we need to be able to explain that for them. Don't assume that they're going to get that image of that 3-year-old tabby. The same goes if we're trying to describe a process. We need to be specific about the steps, and we need to be specific about how those steps progress. If you think about any experience you've ever had where someone was trying to tell you how to do something just verbally without showing you, that's a really hard communication process to master, and it can lead to a lot of confusion. So it really does provide a great representation of the need for clarity in our language. Another thing that we need to think about with regard to clarity is acronyms. Acronyms are great because they condense down a group of words into a single word, make it easier to say, it's faster. However, there's a lot of meaning that doesn't get explained in an acronym. For example, I attend an environmental communication conference that the people who go to it refer to as COCE, COCE. But what COCE is really is that it's the Conference on Communication and Environment. Now, if I say COCE to people who regularly attend COCE, they all know what I mean. But if I walk down the street and say, hey, are you going to COCE? Most of the people are going to look at me like I'm crazy because COCE doesn't mean anything to them. The acronym has basically no meaning at all. And as a result, I have achieved absolutely no communication with that individual. I've only achieved confusion. So to be able to explain what those acronyms are is a really important thing. Don't assume that your audience is familiar with those acronyms. And then also, we need to be able to define unfamiliar terms. This happens a lot with technical language or scientific language, and there's a really great TED Talk about the adolescent brain. And if you think about it, there's a lot of technical language and a lot of technical terms related to the brain and the study of the brain. But this TED Talk does such a great job of explaining what different terms are related to the brain, what things like, and this relates to acronyms, what things like MRI actually stand for. MRI is one of those acronyms that we're familiar with, and we may have some understanding just based on our basic knowledge of medicine. However, the speaker does a great job of explaining what MRI actually stands for. So to be able to deal with acronyms like that and define those unfamiliar terms that the audience might struggle with, and if we present those terms without that explanation, that's really cutting off and creating an obstacle to the communication that we need. So clear language is something that's a big responsibility for the speaker. The speaker needs to be specific, needs to be able to explain the terms and define those terms so that the audience knows what the speaker is talking about.